Kia ora tātou, ko Emma toku ingoa no matamata aho, ki Auckland DHB, a hoe mahi ana. Tēnā koutou katoa. My name is Emma Wylie and I work in the Aotearoa Design Lab at Auckland District Health Board in Aotearoa, New Zealand. We are a 700-bed surgical and medical public hospital that provides quaternary specialist services around the country. Today, I'm here to talk to you about one of our projects, rejuvenating the whānau rooms in our adult inpatient wards. To give you a little insight into the importance of these spaces, I want you to take a moment to place yourself within the hospital ward. As I can't be there in person, I literally want you to close your eyes for me. See yourself in the hospital. You're walking down corridor after corridor, the fluorescent lighting glaring overhead, the clinical smells, and the relentless beeping. You're a family member, supporting and caring for a patient staying in our ward. Maybe you've been here for a few days, snatching sleep where you can. Maybe it's been a long surgery, or an accident, an incredible recovery, or maybe a new miracle baby. All of these experiences, and many, many more, happen every day in our wards. Our challenge is, how can we, as a hospital, meet the physical, emotional, and relational needs of families who are going through so much? To add a further layer to this challenge, under Te Tiriti o Waitangi, Aotearoa, New Zealand is a bicultural nation. So how do we address these needs for our Indigenous Māori, who have historically suffered so much at the hands of colonisation and a westernised health system? Particularly when the very land that this hospital sits on was gifted by Māori chief Apihai Te Kauwau 175 years ago as part of his tribe's commitment to helping establish Auckland. Ngāti Whātua intended to provide a base for the government through this gifting, protecting the customary rights and well-being of their people. One way that we try and meet this challenge are through our whānau rooms. Whānau, meaning family in te reo Māori. Whānau health is as integral to the Māori model of health as physical health or emotional health. Te Marangi Mārie Nere Glavish, our Chief Advisor of Tikanga, has long championed the importance of family to the health of Māori. In the late 90s, as our new hospital build was being designed, she was able to integrate whānau rooms into the new building. Every adult inpatient ward has a whānau room now, 45 of them, a non-clinical space within the hospital ward in which family can gather. To keep clinical care accessible at all times, we have to have a policy of no more than 2 visitors at the bedside of a patient in a shared ward. Therefore, the whānau rooms provide a separate space, a space where families and patients can get away from the clinical noise. They can spend time together, where children can play and where family members can stay overnight when leaving the hospital might not be an option. These rooms play a particularly important role when patients are dying, enabling family to gather together and to support one another. They provide a culturally safe space for tikanga practices or Māori protocol around death and dying. These spaces are Māori, but in line with the way that Ngāti Whātua gifted the hospital land, the whānau rooms support and welcome everybody, regardless of ethnicity. Sadly, in facing the pressures of an acute public hospital, over time the purpose and use of these rooms became diluted. They are now in varying states of disrepair. There's confusion about who and what they're really there for, often run down with old and broken furniture. The rooms communicate no sense of ownership or care or respect. Some are even locked and no longer accessible to whānau. As Aotearoa, in 2018, we were tasked to explore the current condition and to refurbish these spaces with the financial support of the Auckland Health Foundation, a charity that fundraises for groundbreaking projects, education and innovation that has the capacity to transform the way healthcare is provided to adult inpatient services at Auckland DHB. Thankfully, they recognise as clearly as we do the integral role that family play in the health of our patients. Upon starting the project, we quickly realised that this was a much bigger question than a simple refurbishment. If we did not take the time to understand the issues of purpose that had led to the rooms being run down in the first place, we could not expect to design a solution that was sustainable in the long term. Particularly as these are very small rooms. They're often internal and without access to natural light. It's a design challenge to say the least. To try and understand the breakdown in the system, we set an approach to co-design with patients, whānau, community, staff and architects, sitting together at the table, each an expert in their own experience, to explore together what the needs were and what the future of the whānau rooms could look like. We were exceptionally fortunate to be advised by and to learn from Te Marangi Mārie Nere Glavish, the very person who had fought for the room's existence in the first place. This co-design process started out as workshops held in the hospital, with a range of patients in Whānau, hospital architects and specialist Māori architects. We quickly realised that holding workshops in the hospital was a barrier for those who may have had a tough experience here. So recruitment was a consistent challenge. Coupling the logistical issues of getting people here and talking about times in their lives that may have been really tough, without adding to any extra burdens. So we constantly iterated, adding in situ interviews and community engagement pop-ups, where we took our designs out to the community locations, like libraries and Māori Citizens Advice Bureau, for feedback. We learned a huge amount about what's important to people in these spaces. In times of immense stress, people want natural light, they want nature, refuge, access to support. They want to know clearly where they are allowed to be, and they want to know intuitively how to make things work in that space. We heard stories of people sitting in the dark, too scared to turn on the light in case they got the wrong switch and, somehow turned off someone's life support. It sounds irrational, but I work in the hospital and I've felt that same glimmer of fear faced with a light switch. There is nothing like a family member in hospital to take away your sense of control. So our participants wanted smart design to help them navigate that experience. They wanted spaces that felt non-clinical, spaces that supported cultural expression, and spaces that felt safe. Creating culturally safe spaces for Māori is essential in the bigger picture of health in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Colonisation and the inequitable distribution of the health determinants means that Māori experience worse health outcomes at almost every indicator, from cancer to childhood rheumatic heart disease, something that should no longer exist in our developed nation. This fight for equity requires attention at every level of our health system, but by visibly demarcating spaces as Māori, we can make a start. It creates tangible space within a Western health system for people to hold a Māori worldview. This slide shows how we're beginning to do this. A mural on the outside of each of the 45 whānau rooms. This will become one of the main pieces of art throughout our hospital, supporting wayfinding and indicating that here is a non-clinical space, a space for whānau. We are working with Māori specialist architects Taua to design this, working through the challenges of a narrative that's both visual and authentic, but cognizant of the effects of fluorescent light on colour and needing consistency across 45 rooms, all with differently shaped entrances. And we know we can be a tricky customer here. We also need to ensure that the design won't alarm any patients with dementia or cognitive impairment, or have any colours that could in any way possibly mimic or resemble bodily fluids. It's a hospital reality. Moving to address the very small nature of the rooms. We've been able to create designs that bring natural light in through diurnal lighting systems. These mimic the colour and the tone of circadian rhythms and provide a connection to the outside world. It's been really hard to bring nature into the hospital. For infection control purposes, as hard as I've tried, we cannot have real plants with all of the dirt and the spores. So we'll be installing ceilingscapes, LED ceiling panels that reflect images of the sky or the canopy of trees. We're replacing old stained carpet with wood-look vinyl and filling the rooms with furniture that's comfortable and supportive and makes you feel like you could almost be at home, while still meeting all infection control requirements, of course. We've had to make some strong operational decisions within our hospital structure to protect these spaces going forward, such as ensuring that there's no food or drink making facilities, as these take away from the tapu or the sacredness of this space and its ability to then support a tupapaku or a person who has passed away. At other times, food and drink can be consumed, but the room must be blessed again before a tupapaku can come in. Although we have finished designing, our co-design process continues as we reinforce the intent of these spaces through training workshops with staff, updated policy guidelines, and regular audit schedules. COVID-19 has obviously thrown a few spanners in the works of our timeline, but we're pushing towards implementation now. The Auckland Health Foundation have secured funding for the first tranche of 8 rooms, and with building to start in October, these rooms should be open for whānau by the end of the year. We're incredibly grateful to the support of the Auckland Health Foundation and their relationships enabling such a transformation. And of course, we're indebted to our patients, whānau and staff, for sharing the taonga of their stories. Thank you for listening to the story of our work. Ngā mihi nui.